players who hung around too long in the NFL, Peter, trivia question. Which is higher, the number of times Brett Lorenzo Favre led the league in touchdown passes or interceptions?
Interceptions.
Wait, which one is it? Okay, we hit the wrong button. It's the womp womp. I thought the same thing. It's a trick question. I just assumed it was interceptions. 4 times he led in touchdowns. 3 times he led in interceptions. And
well, the reason why I said interceptions is that why would you be asking the question if it wasn't interceptions?
That's the trick. Exactly. That's why I thought the same thing. Oh, yeah, it's a setup, and it was a setup. All right.
Yeah.
It sets it up very well for Brett Favre because that's my first pick. That last season, 2010, when I think it was Ryan Longwell, Jared Allen, and one other guy.
Steve Hutchinson.
Steve Hutchinson. They went down to Mississippi.
Got on an airplane.
Hog-tied Brett Favre and brought him back to Minnesota. They should have left him in Mississippi. That season was never going to live up to 2009. It was a disaster for him personally because that was that whole Jen Sturger thing that never would have come to light if he wouldn't have played that one more year. And it just ended up being a very, very regrettable season for Brett Favre. Ended his consecutive game streak. He got roughed up in New England that year, bloodied, and head hit the turf at TCF Bank Stadium. It was a bad exit for Brett Favre. He should have just called it quits after that 2009 NFC Championship loss to the Saints, Peter.
I'm going to give you a little dose of history with my first one, but I'll stay with quarterbacks, and that is Joe Namath in 1977 with the Los Angeles Rams. I think he only started 4 games when he went there, but look, his knee was ruined when he went to the Rams, and it was a very, very ugly end for Broadway Joe. It was just very, very strange seeing him on the field, out west, rather than seeing him on the crappy turf of Shea Stadium.
Similar context, similar distance. Baltimore to San Diego the last year for Johnny Unitas. Not a good performance, didn't play in many games. And we've talked about this before on this program. I still remember getting the football card of Johnny Unitas as a member of the Chargers, where they basically took a Colts jersey and got like a felt tip pen and colored it to make it look like a Chargers jersey. That's how jarring it was. And it just shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Here's one, though. I'll tell you one that shouldn't have happened. Franco Harris with the Seattle Seahawks.
Ooh, very good.
I mean, I'll never forget watching Seahawks games that year. And you know how when the games were in the Kingdome, okay, and you would watch those games, the lighting was always substandard. So it always looked like you were watching a game at the Kingdome. And you say, will somebody please turn the lights on? And here's Franco Harris, with the same kind of running style. I think he only ran it like 60 or 70 times that year, but running out of bounds on a bad team, on bad turf, in bad lighting. It was a bad look, Mike.
Do you remember when Franco Harris was approaching Jim Brown's all-time rushing record? Brown was talking about coming out of retirement. And they actually did this half-hour feats of strength show where they did and they did a 40-yard dash, and Jim Brown pulled up with a hamstring injury just 2 steps out of it. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it, but I could see it.
Jim Brown was tormented by the possibility of Franco Harris catching him because obviously Jim Brown walked away with plenty of gas left in the tank. Here's one that I got a couple more. Chris Carter had one final season with the Miami Dolphins, which was as forgettable a final season as anyone could ever have. And I just think it's stubbornness, and I don't have a problem with it. Great athlete, Hall of Famer. Vikings were ready to move on. He wasn't. 2002 with the Dolphins, he had, I think, single-digit catches for the year. And I remember they played the Vikings that year. It was a nationally televised game, and there's just Carter standing on the sideline. It's like, why? But I think some guys need that. They need that closure. They need to understand that the game's moved on, that they're no longer what they were. And otherwise, you have that regret that never goes away, that I could have played one more year. You did it, and you realized, no, you couldn't, and you shouldn't have done it.
I'm going to give you one that until I knew we were going to do this segment and I started looking around, I had totally forgotten Thurman Thomas's last cup of coffee in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins. Now, what was so weird about that, Mike, okay, Joe Namath went to the Rams. That has who cares? Not who cares, but, that's across the country. It's in the other conference, all that. Johnny Unitas goes to the Chargers. That's 3,000 miles away. But when Thurman Thomas went to one of the arch rivals, the Buffalo Bills, it was just very strange. It was almost like a vengeance signing. and when he signed there, it was clear that it was over because he had 100 or 200 yards rushing, and then he just sort of faded away after that. That was really one of the weird ones that I felt it just didn't fit at the time. But I think that's part of the reason why that Thurman Thomas probably wanted to do it. He wanted to say to the Bills, see, somebody still wants me.
Last one for me, Chris Carter's former protege in Minnesota, Randy Moss. Now, he had that weird 2010 season where he was with the Patriots. He started to complain publicly about how he didn't think he was going to get a new contract. They trade him to the Vikings for a third-round pick. After 3 games, Brad Childress calls him a programmatic non-fit, which I think is the only time in the history of civilization that term has been used, other than just now, and cuts him. And then the Titans claim him on waivers, and he didn't do anything. And then he's out of football in 2011, and he comes back and plays for the 49ers in 2012 and almost wins a Super Bowl on a team to which he contributed very, very, very little. He just should have stayed out. He would have been in the Hall of Fame a year or two earlier. But I'm taking a liberty here, and I'm kind of wedging the end of 2010 onto it. But that last phase of Randy Moss's career was just very bizarre, Peter.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just add one little note in here, and it isn't about the last year a guy played. It's about the last year a guy didn't play. And I remember being in training camp with the Denver Broncos in one of Mike Shanahan's last years when Jerry Rice, I think he was 42 or maybe 43, was in training camp trying to win a job with the Denver Broncos. And I remember watching a practice one afternoon, and I watched him being man-covered by a free agent cornerback from Bowling Green. And on 2 snaps in a row, this guy clung to Jerry Rice, who was running as fast as he could to try to get away from this kid who was half his age. And a few days later, literally a few days later, the Broncos and Rice announced that either he was retiring or I forget what the announcement was, but it was jarring to see a free agent corner in the early days of training camp basically winning battles with the great Jerry Rice. But Mike, it ends for all of them sooner or later.
And I'm not being critical, and we're not intending to throw shade at these guys. The topic is who stayed 1 year too long. But it's better to stay 1 year too long and find out than to constantly have that doubt that you could have done it. And I wonder if Drew Brees is going through that right now as we continue to wonder what his next move is. Is he thinking, after seeing what Tom Brady did last year, I can do it one more year, and if I don't, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life? And I think you were the first one to tell me this at some point over the past few years. The Brett Favre motivation to come back and keep going was the Phil Simms advice, and I know Chris and I have talked about it. Hey, keep playing until they rip the uniform off of you. Well, if you stink in your last year, they're going to rip the uniform off of you.
Yeah, and I think in Breeze's case is weird, Mike. Recently somebody in New Orleans who I trust said, basically, there's nothing there. Don't worry about it. in due time, basically. Well, I mean, it's just very strange now that we're almost 2 months removed from their last game. 7, 8 weeks, whatever it is. It's just pretty strange. But again, he played for a long time. I guess he deserves the right to do whatever he wants, but it just seems strange to me.
Yeah, I agree, though. He does have the right to decide how he's going to pull the plug on it. And if he wants to come back for another year, it makes things more interesting for us.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.